Hello everybody and welcome back to the Halo Chronicle. Today's video is the final episode in my Contact Harvest series. If you've not seen the previous episodes, a link will be provided in the description below. On the last episode, we learned about an elaborate scheme created by the Minister of Fortitude and the Vice Minister of Tranquility to become high prophets. Using blackmail, the two ministers would force one of the high prophets to step down, which would create an opening. They would then try to usher in the Age of Reclamation in an effort to force the Covenant to appoint 3 new high prophets. In order to do this, they would need the blessing of High Charity's Oracle. The Minister of Fortitude and the Vice Minister of Tranquility would use the Luminary's findings on Harvest as evidence that the Age of Reclamation had begun. They presented this evidence to the Oracle. To their surprise, this Oracle, which had remained dormant for hundreds of years, would awaken. The Oracle would reveal that the symbols found on Harvest did not represent the Age of Reclamation and actually represented Reclaimers. This meant that the symbol was not actually representing a Forerunner relic, but was actually representing a Forerunner or individual chosen by the Forerunners to inherit the mantle of responsibility. This discovery would undermine the foundation of the Covenant and would likely lead to the group dissolving. After revealing this truth to the ministers, the Oracle attempted to activate the Forerunner Dreadnought within High Charity. By a stroke of luck, Lagola worms would accidentally disconnect the Oracle from the Dreadnought systems. The Minister of Fortitude and the Vice Minister of Tranquility would then bring the Oracle's caretaker, named the Philologist, into their scheme. Together, they vowed to never let this truth come to light and to use their power as high prophets to eliminate these Reclaimers and preserve the Covenant. On Harvest, the Brutes would invade a city called Gladshine. The Harvest militia would help the citizens escape the city by using shipping containers. During the evacuation, Johnson and Byrne would spot the Brute chieftain attacking civilians. They would quickly jump into action and attack the Brute chieftain with their Warthog. The Brute chieftain Maccabeus would be struck by their Warthog, which would crush one of his thigh bones. The chieftain would be rescued by other Brute forces and they would retreat. Johnson and Byrne would escape with some help from Harvest's planetary security intelligence known as Loki. When Maccabeus returned to his ship, the Rapid Conversion, he would arrive to Chaos. The Yanmei or drones resented that Lighter Than Some had assumed their ship maintenance duties. In an effort to reclaim their lost role, some of the Yanmei would attempt to kill Lighter Than Some. After taking some time to restore order, Maccabeus ordered the execution of the 2 instigating Yanmei. Lighter Than Some would then reveal that it had created several vehicles that were meant to be gifts for the humans, but the Brutes would misinterpret the engineers' intentions. They saw them as weapons of war to be used by the Brutes on Harvest. Maccabeus ordered the ship's deacon, Dadab, to take Lighter Than Some to the human space station above the planet and attempt to gather more information about their foe. The Harvest militia would meet with Governor Thune to discuss an evacuation plan. Governor Thune disagreed with the plan outlined by Jalan Al-Signy and refused to go along with it as he believed it put his people in danger. This forced Jalan to shoot Governor Thune with several stun rounds, rendering him unconscious. Jalan then used her ranking military authority to assume control of the planet. Her risky evacuation plan was then revealed to Johnson, Byrne, and Ponder. That completes the recap of the last episode. Let's jump into the final chapter of this story. Lighter Than Some immediately began probing the Tiara systems when it arrived on the space station with the Dadab. Through its probing, Lighter Than Some would discover what was actually happening on Harvest. Lighter Than Some had a lot of guilt for killing a human when it was aboard this end up. It did not like that the Brutes were attacking the citizens of Harvest. Through its guilt, Lighter Than Some would look for efforts to undermine the Brutes. It would find a way thanks to an unlikely source, Loki. Loki attached a fragment of itself to the Tiara space station and detected Lighter Than Some's presence. They would have a conversation where Lighter Than Sun would reveal what the brutes were searching for. Lighter Than Sun would give Loki the Forerunner symbol for Oracle. Lighter Than Sun would then find the remains of Sif in the Tiara systems. It would offer to attempt to repair the damaged AI, but Loki would state that that was not necessary. Loki detached itself from the Tiara and reported its findings to the Harvest militia. Despite what Loki stated, Lighter Than Sun began working on repairing Sif. It hoped by repairing Sif it would further make amends. The first phase of Jalan Alsigny's plan would call for a sacrifice. Someone would need to go to Utgard and draw the attention of the brutes. Captain Ponder would take this assignment, though many protested against it. Captain Ponder's injuries had taken a turn for the worst, and he knew he was dying. His spleen was ruptured, and the militia's medical staff did not have the time or the equipment to save him. With that in mind, Ponder accepted this mission. Ponder would have the medical staff load him up with meds and painkillers. He would then take a warthog to Utgard's largest mall in the middle of the city. The human forces would transmit a signal to the brutes that would indicate that they wanted to do another parlay. Again, 2 spirit dropships would come towards the city. One would veer off towards the outer edge of the city and drop several brute choppers. The other would land in the mall and treat with Captain Ponder. 3 brutes would exit the dropship and meet with Captain Ponder. This time, the brute chieftain was not present, and they were led by the second-in-command, Tartarus. Ponder would give the brutes a holographic projector that would display the Oracle symbol. The brutes on the ground would relay their prize to the rapid conversion, which would begin to move towards the city. The human forces knew by the way the brutes attacked that this assault would not end when they found what they were looking for. Captain Ponder would take out a Sweet Williams cigar and begin to take some puffs. He would firmly tell the brutes that one day humanity would win this war. As he finished his sentence, the rapid conversion was struck by 2 MAC rounds fired in quick succession. The very same groundside magnetic accelerator cannon that Harvest would use during their celebrations would be the instrument of their salvation. The first MAC round strike would drop the rapid conversion's shields, and the second would pierce the ship, severing vital systems. The ship would begin to drop out of the sky. The brutes sent to parley with Captain Ponder would deliver a final devastating blow. Ponder would be stabbed through the gut with their bayonets. His spinal cord would be cut in half. He would lose all of his movement but could still speak. With his last bit of life, he would send a warning to Byrne that the brutes were coming. After Ponder made his sacrifice, Jalan put the next phase of her plan into action. All 7 space elevators that were connected to the Tiara space station would come alive for the first time in weeks. Hundreds of shipping containers would begin to climb up these elevators with a blistering speed. These containers would contain the entire population of Harvest. These containers would be sent through slipspace using propulsion pods placed by Mac and Sif weeks in advance. After the humans' surprise attack, Maccabeus and his crew would have to work quickly to try and save the rapid conversion. He would try to send a message to his second-in-command Tartarus on the planet's surface, but to his surprise, Tartarus appeared on the ship's bridge. An angry Tartarus would throw a holographic projector at his uncle's feet. The projector was revealed to have been a trick. Tartarus angrily recounted all of the chieftain's mistakes since coming to Harvest. He stated when they arrived, Tartarus recommended that they destroy the Tiara, but his uncle overruled him. Tartarus believed that Lighter Than Sun could not be trusted, but Maccabeus disregarded his concerns. Tartarus stated that when the Vice Minister of Tranquility sent a message stating that their luminary was malfunctioning and ordered them to glass the planet, Maccabeus disregarded this order. Had Maccabeus listened, the pack would not be in this dire situation. For all of those reasons, Tartarus challenged Maccabeus to a fight to the death. The winner would be the Packmaster and Brute Chieftain. A still injured Maccabeus would accept his nephew's challenge. The two brutes would have a duel to the death while rapid conversion fell from the sky. To honor his uncle, Tartarus allowed Maccabeus to use the Fist of Rucht. The two would go back and forth despite Maccabeus' injury until the blades of one of Tartarus' spikers would cut deep into Maccabeus' arm. This would prevent Maccabeus from using his arm. Using Maccabeus' injury to his advantage, Tartarus would take the Fist of Rucht and push his uncle down a lift shaft. Maccabeus would catch himself on a ladder with his good arm, but he had no means to defend himself. Tartarus would stand over his uncle. Maccabeus would give his nephew one last piece of advice. He would tell his nephew to never forget about the Age of Doubt. With that, Tartarus brought down the Fist of Rucht onto his uncle's head, caving it in. Maccabeus' grip would fail, and he would fall to the bottom of the shaft. Tartarus' first act as chieftain would be to strip off his uncle's armor and put it on himself. He then ordered his crew to prepare a dropship, as he was going to send his forces to the Tiara to stop the humans from escaping and to kill the betrayer. In order to make sure the citizens of Harvest would make it safely off the planet, the militia would need to break down into two different groups. The first would need to protect Loki's data center located in a Harvest reactor complex. After firing the 2 Mac rounds at rapid conversion, Loki would go offline for a short time and would need to be defended. Staff Sergeant Nolan Byrne would lead a squad in charge of defending Loki. The second squad would need to retake the Tiara. A team would need to reach the top of the space station and clear out any Covenant forces that could prevent Harvest citizens from escaping. This team would be led by Avery Johnson with the assistance of Jalan Alsigny. Byrne's team defended Loki's data center from a squad of brutes riding choppers. After some back and forth, Byrne's squad was forced to retreat into the reactor complex. Even though several members of his squad died in the attack and Byrne himself was injured, the second platoon of Harvest militia would be victorious, though it came at a cost. Loki's data center was slightly damaged, which would weaken the powerful AI. Byrne's team would be ordered to leave the reactor facility and board a shipping container to the Tiara. Dadab and Lighter Than Some were in charge of the space station. Lighter Than Some would convey the cruel actions of the brutes and declare that he would no longer serve them. This terrified Dadab, as he knew that he would be held responsible for Lighter Than Some's actions. Dadab would receive a transmission from Tartarus ordering him to have the grunts fire on the shipping containers. Reluctantly, Dadab would join Lighter Than Some and refuse to assist the brutes. Johnson's team would use a series of empty and booby-trapped containers to wreak havoc on the grunts patrolling the Tiara. Johnson's team would work quickly to protect the incoming shipping containers. They would exit the shipping containers and charge into the fray. They quickly took over a third of the station before the grunts could react. Unfortunately for the militia, the grunts would be reinforced by Tartarus and his forces. A huge firefight would break out in the space station. Tartarus would send several squads of Yanmei to attempt to overwhelm the human forces. One of these Yanmei squads would have another objective. During the course of the battle, the number 7 elevator strand would fail and collapse. This would cause the station to shift and swing violently. Loki would struggle to balance the load on the Tiara's other strands. Fortunately for Loki, he would have some backup. Lighter Than Some would restore Sif to full power. With Sif back online, she was able to rebalance the Tiara and prevent its complete collapse. Dadab stepped out of the Tiara's data center to check on the status of the battle. While he was away, a squad of Yanmei would fly into the data center. Dadab could only watch as these Yanmei would kill his friend, Lighter Than Some. An enraged Dadab would shoot all of the drones down with his plasma pistol. Tartarus would lead the charge against Johnson's team. One of the brutes would charge at Jenkins, and another recruit named Forcel would jump in the way of him and take the attack. Forcel would be severely injured. Johnson would quickly spray the brute with lead and provide covering fire so that the fallen recruit could make his escape. Johnson's forces would begin to make their retreat as all of the remaining shipping containers had successfully cleared the Tiara. Tartarus began to charge the militia for one final attack, but at the last second, a grunt would blast him with a plasma pistol. Dadaab took one last shot at the brute he held responsible for his friend's death. A furious Tartarus would turn his attention to Dadaab and smash him with the Fist of Rukt. This tiny opening gave Johnson and his team the time they needed to escape. They boarded shipping containers that were then attached to propulsion pods and sent through slipspace. The brutes would return to their drop ships and subsequently return to a sufficiently repaired rapid conversion. The warship's vital systems were repaired enough for it to resume flight. The brutes would move to take out the groundside magnetic accelerator cannon and Loki's nearby data center. With that in mind, Loki knew that it had one course of action. Loki would send communications to Sif. Sif's data center would house crucial information that the Covenant could use to find all of the human colonies. Loki would fire one last max shot. The shot would have a direct impact on Sif's data center. With that, Sif would be no more. The Covenant would begin the process of glassing Harvest. After making a series of political maneuvers, the Minister of Fortitude, Vice Minister of Tranquility, and the Philologist would secure their ascension to the rank of High Prophet. A massive celebration would usher in the Age of Reclamation. During their ascension ceremony, 7 Halo installations would be projected on the walls around High Charity. It was stated that the great journey was nearly upon them. The 3 new High Prophets would ascend each leg of the Forerunner Dreadnought. Once they reached the top of the Forerunner Dreadnought, the newly appointed High Prophets would share their names for the first time. The Vice Minister of Tranquility would choose the name Regret. The Philologist would choose the name Mercy. Finally, the Minister of Fortitude would choose a name out of pure irony. Due to the lies he must tell and the truth he must hide, Fortitude would choose the name Truth. Thus, the High Prophets of Truth, Regret, and Mercy would assume their roles as the new leaders of the Covenant. Their first order of business would be to declare war on humanity. To keep the Covenant from learning that the Great Journey was a lie, they would wage a brutal genocidal campaign on humanity. During his long journey back to UNSC-controlled space, Johnson would reflect on his time on Harvest. He would go from a soldier fighting a war he hated to a soldier fighting for a true purpose again. The emergence of the Covenant gave Johnson a purpose for the first time in a long time. He knew that there would be many more battles to come, but he also knew that humanity would find a way to somehow come out on top. This resolve would turn Johnson into one of the most badass characters in the Halo universe, and it all started on a farming colony called Harvest. This will complete the Contact Harvest series, but before I leave you, let's discuss some interesting bits of lore tied to today's video. After the citizens of Harvest escaped, Mac would make a brief return. When Loki took over Harvest's groundside operations, Mac would be broken down and used to run automated Jotun systems. When Mac learned that Loki was going to destroy Sif's data center, it sent a large swarm of Jotuns to move the Mac cannon and save Sif. Loki was able to reason with the AIs. They would all agree that destroying Sif was the only solution given their current situation. After the first Battle of Harvest, Rapid Conversion would return to High Charity and bring with it all the intelligence they gathered. Another Covenant ship would be sent to monitor and glass the planet. Tartarus' blind loyalty and ability to follow orders would earn him favor with the Prophet of Truth. The two would work closely together throughout the Human Covenant War. After Harvest fell, the UNSC would send the largest fleet ever assembled in human history to retake the colony. 40 UNSC ships would be led back to Harvest by Admiral Preston Cole. Cole's campaign to retake Harvest was successful, but it came at a cost, and revealed that humanity was greatly outmatched when it came to the sure firepower of the Covenant. 13 UNSC vessels would be destroyed in the Second Battle of Harvest. They were all destroyed by just one Covenant vessel. During their journey back to UNSC-controlled space, Avery Johnson and Jalon Al-Sidney would begin a romantic relationship. Their interaction aboard the shipping container would depict the first sex scene described in a Halo novel. Though Staff Sergeant Nolan Byrne would survive the First Battle of Harvest, he would not survive another famous battle. The details are unknown at this time, but Nolan Byrne would die in the Battle for Earth in 2552. Thank you for watching this series. I really hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed covering it. Before this series, I had only read Contact Harvest once. Going back through it was really refreshing and made me appreciate it a great deal more. If you enjoyed this series and want to hear more Halo lore, please consider subscribing. I have done 3 other series covering multiple Halo novels and other forms of Halo media. My next series is going to cover the Halo novel Bad Blood. That book covers some stories about one of my all-time favorite Halo characters, Edward Buck. I am really excited for this series and can't wait to start covering it. The Bad Blood series will debut on March 5th. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.